Welcome to NTD Good Morning.
Here are today's top stories.
White House says the economy is showing all the right signals as President Trump heads to Pennsylvania to talk about affordability.
And President Trump unveils $12 billion in aid for farmers after China pulled back purchases of products like soybeans following the trade war.
As Democrats and the media continue to pressure the Trump administration to release video of the military striking down drug boats, the president says every single boat strike will save an average of 25,000 American lives.
Democrats maintain their demands on health care, the sticking point through the longest government shutdown in American history. Their proposal to address the expiring Obamacare tax credits is expected to fail again as lawmakers rush to find a compromise solution.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy launches a $1 billion initiative to make travel family-friendly again. We look at what that could mean for airports across the country.
And holiday gatherings can be a source of joy, but can also have the potential to be triggering or stressful. We have advice on how to navigate family dynamics during the holidays from Dr. Kevin Lehman, a psychologist and best-selling author of 50 books.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Today's Tuesday, December 9th. You're watching NTD Good Morning.
An improving economy sets the backdrop for President Trump's visit to Pennsylvania today. The White House cited what it called strong economic news, saying that the national average gas price dipped below $3 last week for the first time in 4 years, and the median rents for U.S. apartments have fallen for 4 straight months.
Consumer confidence has begun to rise, according to a national index. U.S. Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler reacts on Bloomberg.
This is the Trump agenda. This is deregulation. He's already deregulated to the tune of $200 billion. That's a saving of $2,000 per family. That's just a start. We're cutting about 30 regulations for every new regulation. When I talk to small businesses, they say they were crushed under Biden's regulatory regime, Green New Deal that raised costs, not just through his executive orders, but through the agencies, which added additional trillions. So between tax cuts, deregulation, fair trade, we see jobs and opportunities coming back to America, and then $18 trillion of investment coming in. A lot of that's going to play out on Main Street.
Some economic challenges remain. Electricity prices in Pennsylvania are climbing for winter. First-time home buyers face record high entry costs, and voters continue to voice concerns about tariffs, healthcare premiums, and the overall cost of living.
Trump's stop in Mount Pocono is already sparking intense partisan messaging ahead of the 2026 governor's race and key House contests. Republicans say the president is lowering prices for working families, but the Democrats argue his policies are driving the costs higher.
And President Trump unveils a $12 billion farm aid package at a roundtable with cabinet members and American farmers.
The aid package is meant to help farmers affected by the tariffs and other factors. NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu brings us more.
President Trump unveiled that $12 billion farmer aid package here in the cabinet room alongside farmers of corn, cattle, soybeans, and many other industries. And in this package, an initial $11 billion will be given to farmers of row crops. Then another additional $1 billion is still being sorted out for specialty crops. The aid will be given through a one-time Bridge Assistance Program under the Department of Agriculture's newly named Farmer Bridge Assistance Program. Here's Court Holub, a farmer from Iowa, saying how the aid will affect his family. Watch.
I think you brought Christmas to farmers with this bridge payment. You have a backbone to stand up to other countries for trade. I'll be able to potentially pass on a farm to my children because of you.
Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins says the payments will start by February 28th.
But by the end of this month, so just in the next couple of weeks, every farmer that is able to apply for it will know exactly what that number looks like.
Farmers are an indispensable national asset, part of the backbone of America. I've always felt it so strongly. They're so important.
This announcement comes as the U.S. has been in a trade war with China, leading to some U.S. farmers struggling to sell their crops as Beijing pulled back on purchases of products like soybeans, a move that President Trump condemned as economically hostile.
Either in person or when we are on a call with President Xi, the first thing the president asking for is more soybean purchases. We don't talk about geopolitics. We don't talk about trade. It's about soybean purchases.
We don't even say hello. We immediately start. Soybean. We start with the soybean, please.
Could you do a little? It's always, could you do a little more?
Soybean purchases gradually ramped up after a late October agreement between President Trump and CCP leader Xi Jinping, with China making its biggest daily soybean buy in 2 years last month.
China committed to purchase at least 12 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans this growing season, followed by a minimum of 25 million tons annually for the next 3 years.
However, current soybean purchase quantities are still far behind the committed 12 million tons that China said that they would commit to by the end of February. And meanwhile, President Trump is threatening to impose an additional 5% tariff on Mexico, accusing it of violating a water-sharing treaty. The president is demanding that Mexico immediately release the 200,000 acre-feet of water before the end of this year, saying that it's damaging Texas crops and livestock and that it's hurting American farmers.
And thanks to Mari for that report. President Trump defending his directive to strike drug boats as Democrats and reporters continue to press him to release footage of a second strike that killed 2 alleged smugglers.
That's right. The president outlines why he says the strikes are needed in the first place. And NTD's Melania Weisskopf brings us more on that story.
The media and Democrats are now pressuring the Trump administration to release the raw video of the second military strike that killed 2 drug smugglers. During a heated exchange, President Trump sought to remind a reporter why he's directing the strikes in the first place.
He now says it's under review. Are you ordering the secretary to release that full video?
Whatever he decides is okay with me. So every boat we knock out of the water, every boat, we save 25,000 American lives. That was a boat loaded up with drugs. I saw the video. They were trying to turn the boat back to where it could float. And we didn't want to see that because that boat was loaded up with drugs just like everything else. But every boat we shoot down, and I don't know if you know, we're 92 or 94% down in drugs coming in by the sea. And we're trying to find.
Since the Trump administration began targeting drug shipments by sea, Democrats have raised questions and sought to limit the president's authority.
But the actual strike can absolutely be released. I mean, they've released, what, a dozen, 15 different videos already of strikes on ships. You see what's going on. And in the video that I saw, you can see clearly what these 2 people are doing on what remains of a tiny little piece of their capsized boat right before the strike hits.
Senator Tom Cotton, the Republican who chairs the Senate Intelligence Committee, says he supports the full video's release.
These are narco-terrorists who are trafficking drugs that are destined for the United States to kill thousands of Arkansans and millions of Americans. The first strike, the second strike, and the third and the fourth strike on September 2nd were entirely lawful and needful, and they were exactly what we'd expect our military commanders to do.
Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth says the Pentagon is reviewing the video of the strikes to determine what can responsibly be released to the public. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melania Weisskopf, NTD News.
And the Supreme Court is weighing whether to ease limits on a president's authority to fire certain agency officials. The justices heard oral arguments yesterday and signaled they may eliminate some of those barriers. NTD's correspondent Jason Blair brings us more on that.
After hearing oral arguments, the Supreme Court seems likely to remove certain barriers, limiting the reasons a president can remove members of the Federal Trade Commission and independent federal agencies. President Trump fired FTC head Rebecca Slaughter in March. After Slaughter won some appeals, the Supreme Court ruled to allow Slaughter's removal while agreeing to hear Trump versus Slaughter, which started arguments on Monday. If the High Court does indeed side with the federal government, it would strengthen the president's ability to remove senior officials from some federal agencies. The precedent cited in the case is 1935's Humphrey's Executor versus United States. The court ruled that FTC members can't be removed without a cause. Chief Justice John Roberts suggested that a 2020 case, See the Law versus Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, had hollowed out the decision in Humphrey's executor. Roberts indicated that Slaughter's attorney, Amit Agarwal, should switch to using a different precedent to support his case.
The one thing See the Law made pretty clear, I think, is that Humphrey's executor is just a dried husk of whatever people used to think it was, because in the opinion itself, it described the powers of the agency it was talking about, and they're vanishingly insignificant, has nothing to do with what the FTC looks like today.
Some of the other justices also seem skeptical of limits that Slaughter attempted to impose on Trump's executive authority. However, some justices expressed concern about overruling a 90-year-old precedent.
You're asking us to destroy the structure of government and to take away from Congress its ability to protect its idea that the government is better structured with some agencies that are independent.
Trump's firing of FTC Commissioner Slaughter is part of the president's broader push to remove officials from independent agencies whose leaders have traditionally been protected from at-will dismissal without cause. The Supreme Court is expected to issue a ruling in Trump versus Slaughter by the end of June 2026. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Jason, thank you for that great report. Next, Congress will hold its first vote this week on a series of proposals to address the expiring Obamacare tax credits. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has that story.
The Senate will vote this Thursday on the Democrats' proposal to address the expiring COVID-era Affordable Care Act healthcare tax credits. The vote on Thursday is a commitment that Republicans made to Democrats so a small group of Democrats would vote to reopen government last month.
I'm announcing that Senate Democrats will introduce legislation for a 3-year clean extension of the current ACA tax credits. This bill, a clean year 3 extension of the ACA tax credits that Democrats will bring to the floor for a vote on Thursday, and every single Democrat will support it. Every single Democrat.
The Democrats' demands, which caused the longest government shutdown in American history, have remained unchanged. A 3-year clean extension of the COVID-era tax credits would cost American taxpayer approximately $120 billion.
The COVID-era subsidy only affects 7% of Americans, okay? All this hullabaloo is over 7%. Now, every American, 100% of Americans need their health care costs to come down. Republicans have ideas to do that. Now, what I've got to do is build consensus deliberately around the best ideas, and we've been working on that.
So, sadly, this is not really a serious effort. Just to extend 3 years, something that has not been working, that was meant to be temporary from the beginning, is not a good vote. That's not a thoughtful vote to say, we're just going to extend what we're doing.
Yeah. A group of bipartisan lawmakers in the House of Representatives have also proposed a 2-year extension with a commitment to agree on reforms by July 2026. These reforms could include income caps on beneficiaries as well as measures to reduce fraud.
We need action from this Congress, and all we're getting are stunts. Republicans obtained from the Government Accountability Office last week so that they could yell fraud, fraud, fraud to justify denying these credits. But if you look at the details of the report, it shows the fraud is coming from a group of insurance brokers and agents, that the Biden administration responded by suspending 850 of those people.
This Thursday's vote on the Senate floor on the Democratic proposal to address the expiring tax credit is expected to fail. A group of Republican senators have also proposed passing along the subsidies directly to consumers instead of to insurance companies. The tax credits expire by the end of December. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Thanks to Luis for that report. The Trump administration is launching a billion-dollar initiative aimed at making America's airports healthier and more family-friendly. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy rolled out the plan yesterday at Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. Here's more on that.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says his department will direct $1 billion towards grants that airports can use to improve the health and comfort of travelers.
So I'm announcing at DOT that we have $1 billion in funding for grant programs to make the experience better in airports.
Duffy said airports can decide what exactly the grants would be used for, suggesting facilities to benefit families and help passengers stay healthy.
I want to expand the play areas for kids. I want additional nursing pods for nursing mothers. Maybe I want a workout area where people might get some blood flow and doing some pull-ups or some step-ups.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joined Duffy, saying airports have long lacked healthy food choices for the roughly 3 million Americans who pass through them each day.
And I can tell you that this is where healthy diets go to die. The food that's available in the airport, a lot of it tastes very good, but it's not very good for you.
Kennedy said the new grants would encourage airports to have healthier options.
And one of the things that Secretary Duffy is encouraging these airports to do is to open up new options like the one you see behind you, Farmer's Fridge.
Kennedy also emphasized the need for better nursing accommodations, something he said many airports lack.
A lot of airports are not very family-friendly in that sense. And one of the projects that we're hoping that the airports will spend money on is improving the experience for mothers who want to travel with their babies.
Alongside healthier food and nursing spaces, the campaign promotes new exercise areas, with influencers like Dr. Paul Saladino arguing that even brief movement can reduce inflammation and improve traveler well-being.
I think the goal that we're thinking about is mini gyms, 3 to 5, 10 to 15-minute workouts. We don't need people to get sweaty. Can have a very positive health impact, but a very positive mental impact, but less than 15 minutes.
The initiative is part of a push by the administration to improve airport experiences.
3, 4.
It follows Duffy's recent campaign asking travelers to be more respectful at airports and encouraging airlines to offer healthier options.
We're asking people to, again, maybe dress a little better. And I've asked airplanes to give some better options. It's all in the airline's purview, how they're going to respond to this.
Duffy said the changes won't happen overnight, but travelers can expect to see progressive improvements to the airport experience.
And a federal judge has tossed President Trump's executive order halting permits and leases for new wind energy projects. District Judge Patty Saris ruled yesterday the order violated federal law. 17 states and the District of Columbia challenged the pause. They argued the administration's agencies failed to meet legal requirements under the Administrative Procedure Act. Judge Saris said the open-ended freeze prevented agencies from concluding matters within a reasonable time, saying no permits have been issued since the directive took effect in January. Massachusetts Attorney General called the ruling a major win, saying it protects states' investments in offshore wind.
And up ahead, the hearing for accused killer Luigi Mangione enters its 5th day today after his defense made a major move to block key evidence. Our legal correspondent Arlene Richards has the latest from inside the courtroom.
And the director of a new documentary on critical race theory explains what it is and why it's been a target of the Trump administration. After this. Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. The hearing for accused killer Luigi Mangione resumes today for the 5th day of testimony. Yesterday, his defense team attempted to have key evidence excluded before the trial begins.
Our NTD reporter and legal correspondent Arlene Richards was in the courtroom and has the latest on the testimony.
2 more witnesses testified for the prosecution on Monday in day 4 of the Luigi Mangione evidentiary hearing. Nicole Smith, first assistant district attorney for Blair County, Pennsylvania, took the stand Monday morning. She provided testimony on when Mangione's backpack was searched and what items Altoona, Pennsylvania police lawfully seized. The defense is contending that the search was conducted unlawfully because police didn't have a warrant. Smith said an officer on the scene contacted her to get approval for the charges of forgery and tampering with regard to the fake driver's license Mangione gave to police. Once he got the approval, the officer placed Mangione under arrest. Smith said the officer told her that Mangione may be the person that New York police were looking for in the shooting of Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO, and that this approval was necessary because they would eventually have to transfer the evidence to New York police. She said once Mangione was placed under arrest, Pennsylvania law allows them to search any property on his person and in his bags. Smith also explained the difference between contraband evidence and inventory evidence. Contraband would include items like a gun and ammunition, whereas inventory is items like clothing, notebooks, and food. The contraband could be seized and not returned to the backpack. Inventory items were returned to the backpack and transported with Mangione to the corrections facility where he was ultimately placed. The defense did not cross-examine Smith. Officer Christy Wasser conducted the search of the backpack. She testified that she didn't begin the search until after Mangione was officially handcuffed and placed under arrest. She called it a search incident to arrest, which includes the person and the bags he had with him. She found several items, including a pocket knife and a loaf of bread. On cross-examination, Wasser testified that at least 10 officers were present when she arrived and that Mangione's backpack had been placed on a table across from him. She said 3 officers stood between Mangione and his backpack before and after the arrest, which prevented him from leaving or having access to his belongings. More witnesses are expected to be called this week. A trial date has not been set. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Top Australian diplomats visit Washington to strengthen ties amid escalating tensions from the Chinese regime.
That's as Japan and Taiwan work to ensure the U.S. will have their backs to counter China's aggression. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more on that one.
Top officials in Washington meeting with their Australian counterparts amid an increasingly aggressive Chinese Communist Party, which is conducting more military drills, sometimes dangerously close to U.S. allies in the Indo-Pacific.
This is an incredibly strong alliance.
The stronger we are together, the more we can deter the kinds of conflicts neither of us want to see.
We welcome President Trump's statement. We are full steam ahead.
President Trump and Australia's Prime Minister at the White House back in October signed a deal on critical minerals, those used in technology from cell phones to fighter jets. That's after China restricted its global exports on critical minerals, but later paused that decision for a year as part of the U.S.-China trade deal.
We have to have critical mineral supplies and supply chains that are reliable and that are diverse and not overly invested in one place, where they can be used as leverage against us or our partners of the world.
Australia's defense minister emphasizing the role that the U.S. plays in their security.
Our relationship with the United States is the most important relationship that we have, and indeed our alliance with the United States is really the cornerstone of Australian strategic and foreign policy.
But that's not just true for Australia. All of America's allies in the Indo-Pacific are to some degree dependent on American leadership in countering a potential attack from the Chinese regime.
You know, you travel, I'm sure you do too, you travel to Japan, Philippines, Taiwan, almost anywhere you go. The question is, will America be there for us if and when the time comes?
And the U.S.'s position is to deter China through strength rather than conflict.
It's our job to make sure Beijing sees unquestionable U.S. military strength that, if necessary, can back up our national interests.
In the latest escalation on Sunday, 2 Chinese fighter jets aimed a radar beam signaling to fire at Japanese military aircraft near Japan's Okinawa Islands.
China's radar lock-on was a dangerous act exceeding the scope necessary for the safe flight of aircraft. We will respond calmly and resolutely.
The heightened tensions between China and Japan come after the Japanese Prime Minister said that her country would protect Taiwan in the event of a CCP attack. Last week, Trump signed the Taiwan Assurance Implementation Act, which requires the State Department to update its guidelines for U.S. engagements with Taiwan at least every 5 years. And that's designed to deepen the relationship between both countries in the absence of formal diplomatic relations. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Thank you, Jack. And as concerns about foreign influence continue to rise across North America, Canadian scholar Charles Burton has launched his new book, The Beaver and the Dragon, at events in Toronto and Ottawa.
The book exposes how the Chinese Communist Party is reaching into many parts of Canadian society, and that applies to most Western societies, and it calls for defending freedom, democracy, and national sovereignty. Let's have a look at that.
The Beaver and the Dragon draws on Byrne's personal experience and first-hand observations to show how, for decades, the CCP has used diplomacy, business ties, and cultural influence to reach into Canada and threaten its freedoms.
What we get out of the Chinese Communist Party today is dishonesty and insincerity. The alternative narratives coming out of Beijing are unconscionable, perfidious bafflegag. It is a betrayal to claim the party's dissembling is true to Chinese cultural imperatives. In that sense, the Chinese Communist Party is ultimately not very Chinese.
Charles has always highlighted the dangers and the depth and the very serious nature of Chinese transnational repression here in Canada. It needs to move forward without any further delay.
At the same time, Byrne walks through past case studies and recent diplomatic disputes, arguing that Canadian governments have misread the geopolitical landscape and allowed the country to fall under growing pressure from Beijing.
The Beaver and the Dragon, conveying a strong message that we've really got it wrong.
Our country's become a haven for snow washing money through our capital markets, our real estate markets. There's a lot of transnational repression happening in this country right now, and we have to fight it tooth and nail.
It's very clearly in that camp of the adversary camp with Russia, with Iran, North Korea, etc.
Byrne stresses the need to defend freedom, human rights, and national sovereignty, and offers concrete suggestions for how Canada should reset its China policy.
I urge caution in the government. I think our primary focus for trade diversification should be democratic countries that pose no existential threat to Canada as China does.
I don't think we can align ourselves in any way with China. It's fine to do business with China, but we have to put conditions on it and then stand by them.
They have to stop oppressing and repressing Chinese diaspora community around the world.
NTD News, Canada.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Stephanie Cox. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth laid out the administration's emerging America First National Defense Strategy in a keynote speech at the Reagan National Defense Forum on Saturday. And joining us for insight on that is former Navy officer Brent Sadler, also a research fellow for naval warfare at the Heritage Foundation. Good to have you with us this morning, Brent.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Good morning. So Hegseth said the U.S. will put our nation's practical, concrete interests first. How do you see the approach overall?
Yeah, I mean, when I went through the national security strategy released late last week, I thought it was a fresh new look because normally these are overly flowery prose, a lot of fluffy, non-detail, or very hard to figure out exactly what the direction or in a specific sense, what the administration's willing to focus its time and energy on. That's not the case with this new document. It's refreshingly straightforward, and I think very, clear in its language. Defense of the homeland of the United States and the interest in improving the livelihood of American citizens is top priority, as it is for every nation in the world, or at least responsible ones. And clearly articulating the dangers in the Asia-Pacific region that China poses, especially over potential war over the future fate of Taiwan, is also brought up in the paper, but it's not done in an antagonistic way. It's brought into a realistic way. And I think that's really another common theme that I think is important to highlight. It's a document based in common sense and realism at its core.
And let's look at some of the strategies laid out to achieve those ends. How does the U.S. military currently compare to the Chinese regime's military, and what are some of the other strategies the U.S. strategy plan has laid out?
Well, clearly, when it comes to the military balance in the Indo-Pacific versus China, we're not in a healthy place. Thankfully, we have strong allies like the Japanese, the South Koreans. The Filipinos are spending lots of money and really starting to bolster their military presence in the South China Sea. But we're not where we need to be to really make sure peace stays the norm. And we see that just over the weekend with some very provocative acts by the Chinese by locking on missile targeting radars on Japanese fighter aircraft that were operating actually in Japanese air defense zone. So in order to turn that, we have to actually do much more to strengthen our collective militaries. And that's clearly a priority in Congress here in D.C., is I think also trying to deliver on that. Again, much more is needed to be done, and I'm very critical of that. But overall, we should see, I hope in another report that's forthcoming, the annual report to Congress on the developments in China's military. Normally it comes out of, earlier in the fall. But again, this is the first year of this new administration, but certainly before Christmas.
And we saw some of the priorities. We have been seeing some of the priorities of the U.S. military now under this administration, trying to focus much more on lethality and just the strength through peace through strength, and that aspect of the military, its essential purpose. But okay, in regards to China, experts and onlookers are saying it could try to overtake Taiwan, in the next year or two, or at a maximum maybe 5 years. It's very soon.
Yeah.
It does take a long time to build up a military. You're saying we're not there yet. How long do you think it will take for us? Of course, we don't know the full extent of the Chinese military's build up, and they're certainly building up their own military. But how do you see the pace of our build up and what we need to do to get there in time?
Yes. So there's been a lot of conversation about the so-called Davidson window, named after a former commander of the Indo-Pacific Command in Hawaii, who would be responsible for all U.S. military forces should war ever come between the United States and China. That 2027 is based on some very sound intelligence and very sound analysis. But again, it's just a window of time in which China would be, or building up to, quite frankly, it's their perception. They've been building up their military to be able to prevail in a war. It doesn't mean that they will go to war. That decision is the Secretary General of the Chinese Communist Party's to make, Xi Jinping. And the key thing is to try to continue to make sure that he doesn't wake up sometime next year or in 2027 and decide, yes, today's the day to go to war with the United States over Taiwan. That's going to require a few things. As you mentioned, building up militaries takes a long time, and we are late to the task. So that term of the equation, Chinese deterrence, is not favorable. The next is economic resiliency. In other words, can you sustain a wartime economy? Mainland China does have severe vulnerabilities, but they've been working for a decade plus to plug those gaps. And so that's pretty much kind of a draw. They could probably wage a very long war in the order of years, all things being equal. But the final term of this equation is the effective political control, and this is where there's the biggest doubt in Beijing. Will the Japanese become active belligerents in a war? The current prime minister made that clear she would. How effective will the Filipinos be in executing an interference campaign in the southern flank of such a war? And of course, will the American public sanction a full-fledged major war with China over the fate of Taiwan? I think all those question marks really are very large in Beijing's mind, and they don't have good answers. And that's good for us in peace.
And as you mentioned, some of these positions of other nations have been shifting in regards to Taiwan, and that's certainly something the Chinese regime is watching closely. But in this recent strategy laid out by Hegseth, he also reiterated the administration's stance on wanting U.S. allies to stand more on their own 2 feet in terms of their own defense and in terms of their military buildup. How do you see that in relation to the U.S. positioning other countries to prepare for any potential aggression by the CCP?
Yeah, I mean, the worst offenders have been NATO partners that have shirked their defense spending for decades and basically a bandwagon or free road on the United States' military, very large military presence in the region. That can't happen anymore, and it's part of the reason why Putin attacked Ukraine in February of 2022. So NATO countries need to really make up for lost time. That's why their GDP goal for defense spending is 5%. Of course, countries like Japan, going back to Prime Minister Abe's second time in office back in 2012-13 timeframe, have been actually gradually spending more in their defense, and they do have a significant military and very professional military. South Korea has been shifting more from a defense from just North Korea to a regional defense posture, but it's taking time. And of course, the Philippines, as mentioned earlier, is also spending more. But in those, at least South Korea and Japan are called out explicitly in the national security strategy for doing more. I think that we are pushing in Washington, D.C. on an open door on both cases, but it's got to be done in a smart way, and it's got to be done on a timeline that politically can be sustained both by Seoul and Tokyo.
Well, really great to have these insights from you this morning. There's so much to pick apart here. That's all we have time for right now. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Brent Sedler.
Thank you very much.
And up ahead, a blockbuster showdown. Paramount counters Netflix deal with a nearly $110 billion hostile bid for Warner Brothers Discovery, setting up a fierce fight over Hollywood's future.
Meanwhile, Arctic air is sweeping across much of the U.S., bringing cold temperatures, heavy snow, and flood risks. Millions are under winter weather alerts, with dangerous conditions expected on roads and across affected regions. Stay tuned for that.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Carrie Dunst. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. Democrats and reporters are pressuring President Trump to release footage of a military strike that killed 2 alleged drug smugglers who survived an earlier strike. During a heated exchange, Trump explained to a reporter why he's directing the strikes in the first place, telling her every boat strike saves 25,000 American lives. Republican Senator Tom Cotton, chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, says he supports the full video's release. The Pentagon is now reviewing the footage to determine what can be released publicly. And President Trump unveiled a $12 billion farm aid package at a roundtable meeting with cabinet members and American farmers yesterday. $11 billion will be given to row crop farmers, and an additional $1 billion will be sorted out for specialty crops. This comes as Trump is expected to visit Pennsylvania today to discuss the U.S. economy, with the White House pointing to cheaper gas and falling rent prices. Staying with the Trump administration, they're rolling out a $1 billion plan to make America's airports healthier and more family-friendly. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy unveiled the initiative yesterday at Reagan National Airport. He outlined new federal grants to help airports improve traveler health and comfort. The upgrades could include healthier food choices, expanded nursing spaces, children's play areas, and even workout stations. And the Senate is expected to vote this Thursday on the Democratic proposal to address Obamacare subsidies that are set to expire at the end of this year. The vote is expected to fail, with a group of Senate Republicans proposing to give the subsidies directly to consumers instead of to insurance companies. A clean 3-year extension of the subsidies would cost close to $100 billion to taxpayers. Those are this morning's top headlines. With that, Steph, over to you.
Thanks, Carrie. And a plot twist in a major entertainment deal. Paramount Skydance yesterday launching a hostile bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the last-ditch effort to outbid Netflix and create a media powerhouse to challenge streaming giants' dominance.
Netflix appeared to clinch the weeks-long bidding war on Friday, striking an equity deal worth more than $70 billion for Warner Brothers Discovery's TV and film studios and its streaming platforms. But Paramount is now back with a nearly $110 billion counteroffer, signaling that the contest for Warner Brothers and its prized HBO and DC Comics assets is far from over. Paramount CEO David Ellison says their proposal offers faster regulatory certainty and is backed by the Ellison family and Redbird Capital.
Our deal is pro-consumer, it's pro-creative talent, it's pro-competition.
Ellison says the Netflix deal would create an entity with unprecedented market power, with more than 400 million subscribers between Netflix and Warner Brothers.
That's bad for Hollywood, that's bad for the creative community, that's bad for consumers.
The Warner Brothers Discovery Board of Directors yesterday afternoon said it would review Paramount's offer, but is not modifying its recommendation with respect to Netflix. It advised the company to take no action at this time on the Paramount Skydance proposal. President Trump reacted yesterday, saying he doesn't know enough about the Paramount deal to comment.
I know the companies very well, I know what they're doing, but I have to see what percentage of market they have. We have to see the Netflix percentage of market.
He added he has no personal stake in the matter.
None of them are particularly great friends of mine. You know, I want to do what's right.
At the Kennedy Center on Sunday, the president warned that a Netflix-Warner Brothers merger could be a problem. Senator Elizabeth Warren criticized the deal last week, calling it an anti-monopoly nightmare, saying it could give one media giant control of nearly half the streaming market. Paramount's bid would include Warner Brothers Discovery's cable networks. Netflix's offer covers the film and TV studios, HBO, and the Max streaming service. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And thanks to Daniel for that report. Critical race theory, or CRT, has been a target of the Trump administration to remove it from the military and other government institutions. But what is CRT? How did it show up in America? And how do you recognize it? Joining us to discuss and share about his new documentary on CRT is Daniel Hall, director of the new documentary Adversity, Stories of Critical Race Theory. Thanks for joining us, Daniel. To kick off,
thank you so much, Karen. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you. And before we get into the film, can you just help us understand what is critical race theory and where it comes from and how it's so prevalent in America right now?
Well, critical race theory it's been distorted a lot. Let's say that. What it actually is and what it's said to be in the media is two very different things. And that's what I did the documentary about, is to really answer the question, what is critical race theory? Where does it come from? And if you want the short answer, it's I don't want to give away the plot. I want people to watch the movie and find out what critical race theory is, Carrie. So I'm not going to give you the direct answer there. But I give a very detailed answer with expert explanation as to what the theory is, where it comes from, how it's applied, what it does, and most importantly, what people, along with the Trump administration, as you said, are doing to get it out of their schools, get it out of their companies, and so on.
Well, with all the things you can make a movie about, why did you focus on CRT? And dedicate so much time and resource to exploring it?
Well, that's sort of a two-pronged thing. On the one side, the work that I was doing at the time was just sort of getting me in contact with people who were already talking about CRT it was about four or 5 years ago. And they were the ones, I met them, I was like, oh, hey, we're all talking about the same topic. And I thought, there was also a push for documentaries. And I was like, hey, this may be a good idea. I'm just, maybe fate is pushing me in this direction. I ought to do it. That was one reason, sort of convenience. The other reason, though, was my daughter, my first child, was about 1 year old at that time. And I was really starting to think, like, where am I going to send my girl to school? Or am I going to send my girl? Or all those sort of questions. And, we're going the public school route, but that's always hanging over my head. Hey, is she going to be introduced to this sort of stuff? And, now I've got my second. I got my son. He's 1 month old. And even more so, it's giving me that idea of, like, what is he going to be learning in school eventually? And I thought, well, on the one side, I could just, make my own action. I was meeting all these people, I could take the other action and say, hey, I've really got to let the rest of the world, let the rest of the country know what could be going on in their schools.
And just for some relevant context, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King said in his famous speech that he dreamt of a society where children were judged on the content of their character and not the color of their skin. Ironically, CRT kind of does the opposite of that. So in exploring this topic in depth, going in the other direction of MLK that CRT does, what did you learn? Is it just talking points and it's not really affecting day-to-day life, or is it truly prevalent within the public school education and other aspects of society?
So I would say to address your first point, yes. One of the commentators says directly that that society has shifted from color blindness to color consciousness, where we're trying to not pay attention to people's skin color, just pay attention to their character. And now in some cases, it's all about the skin color. So that is certainly a thing that exists, and that is, I would say, from what I've learned from the speakers, that is by design. That was the goal of this all along, to make sure that certain immutable characteristics about people are the metrics for deciding where they should be in society. That was a planned out thing that is by design, or by the architects, you could say, of this theory, the ones who conceived of it and who taught it initially in universities. That was the idea. And you get to see the whole path of how that came to be in the university. It's like how they came to that idea, what the initial ideas were. And you can see the reasoning behind it. That doesn't mean I necessarily agree with the reasoning behind it, but it's all laid out for the audience to understand and learn about.
Yeah, and any regular viewer of NTD is quite educated on Marxism and its dangers. I think the dark irony of the critical race theory with its root in Marxism is that it became a cottage industry and fully took advantage of the capitalistic society to propagate it through consultancies and things of this nature. So with that in mind, I was just curious, as we start to finish up, you made this movie. You obviously want to educate people about the dangers and the prevalence of critical race theory on society. So who do you hope and why do you hope certain audiences have the opportunity to see this film?
Well, I hope for audiences, I would say, I hope for anyone who is even slightly involved with education can watch this, whether you have a kid directly in school, if you know someone who has a kid in school, if your children's children are the ones in school. To anyone, it would be relevant who is thinking about this, or even people who are thinking about having kids. It's anyone who this sort of stuff matters to, because this is all of our society, or excuse me, I shouldn't say all of our society, but many people in our society are going through this, and they're taking it as fact because, hey, their teachers are saying it. And this is, for that reason, it's something really worth looking at and understanding and seeing if it needs to be rooted out of your system.
Well, I appreciate you joining us, and good luck with the new film. Daniel Hall, director of the new documentary Adversity, Stories of Critical Race Theory. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Gary.
I'm so looking forward to seeing it. And just a note for our audience, it is premiering tonight on NTD at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to check it out. And next, the U.S. is bracing for a surge of Arctic cold. Frigid temperatures and snow are creating hazardous travel from the Midwest to the Northeast.
That's right. Millions are also under alerts for flooding, snow, and other winter hazards. And NTD's Christina Corona is going to bring us more on that.
Frigid temperatures and powerful storm systems are sweeping across much of the U.S. this week, bringing dangerous cold, snow, and flooding concerns. A surge of Arctic air is pushing temperatures 10 to 20 degrees below normal across areas east of the Mississippi River, with the coldest conditions focused over the northern plains, Great Lakes, and upper Midwest. By Tuesday morning, some cities in the Northeast, including Boston, New York, and Philadelphia, could see near-record low temperatures. Winter weather alerts are posted for at least 12 million people from eastern Kentucky through Virginia and into northern North Carolina. Additional snow is forecast to spread from North Dakota into the Great Lakes and New England by Wednesday. At the same time, a powerful atmospheric river is set to soak large portions of Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. The National Weather Service issued warnings for widespread rainfall of 4 to 6 inches, with some areas along the Cascades foothills expecting up to a foot of rain. Christina Corona, NTD News.
And up ahead, back here on Earth after 8 months in space, a NASA astronaut and 2 Russian cosmonauts successfully land after a stint on the International Space Station. Stay with us for that. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. A NASA astronaut and 2 Russian cosmonauts are back on Earth after completing a long-duration research mission aboard the International Space Station.
That's right. The trio touched down in Kazakhstan just after midnight Eastern Time and after a smooth descent in their capsule.
Their spacecraft undocked from the station last night, beginning the final leg of a journey that spanned more than 240 days in orbit.
The Russian Space Agency confirmed the successful touchdown of their astronauts alongside NASA's astronaut Jonathan Kim.
Recovery teams quickly reached the landing site to assist the crew as they began readjusting to gravity after 8 months.
Their departure clears the way for the next crew, who are beginning their own 8-month rotation aboard the orbiting outpost in the space.
Oh, and so the story continues. That's great. You know, it's so nice to see. Though the 2 countries are having high tensions at this present moment and continuing, Russian and U.S.
partnership up there at the International Space Station,
working together
right?
for the good of humankind, and may that research bear more goodness for humankind.
Yeah, I always love seeing those videos, like as soon as they touch down and they haven't felt gravity for 8 months and they're just, they look spent, you know?
Oh yeah, what an expedition. Well, back on Earth, Melania Trump was in Quantico, Virginia yesterday, spreading an important message, I say, while distributing toys at the Toys for Tots drive.
That's right. The First Lady and U.S. Marines work to bring children a little Christmas cheer.
Yeah.
To everyone here at Quantico, and all those who support the Toys for Tots Foundation, thank you. This includes the Toy Association's generous support. I'm grateful for your partnership and dedication to promoting fun and creativity. You help bring the delight of Christmas morning to millions of children, and you remind us all that American tradition, kindness and love remain among our most powerful.
Kindness and love, a great reminder. The First Lady also thanked the nation's military and their families.
Toys for Tots started in 1947 after initial success. The Commandant of the Marine Corps directed all Marine Reserve sites to continue the initiative.
Today, the Marine Toys for Tots Foundation fundraises, purchases toys, and educates the public about its work. Those who want to join the effort can visit toysfortots.org.
Yeah, what a great way to give back to kids and support the military at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. No shortage of kindness there, and no shortage of the need for it, especially at this time of year.
Yeah, giving, right? That's the thing. And we had that great interview with Dr. Lehman earlier, and he said his family, they just buy gift cards and they roll out to bus stations and they give out gift cards. And he has the kids give out the gift cards. So whatever way, whether it's Toys for Tots, find a way to go spread some random acts of kindness out there.
Good reminder. Well, speaking of which, firefighters from the Greater Athens Fire Service in Greece paid a visit to the Athens Main Children's Hospital last night.
That's right. And they didn't just walk in the front door.
No.
They rappelled from the roof of the hospital, and they were dressed as Santa, like Santa paratroopers, basically. And they delivered these gifts to the kids who were suffering cancer.
We descended with ropes like Santa Claus to give them some gifts, for them to see how we climbed down to give them some joy. My feeling is it is really difficult to see this, let alone live through it. They are heroes, both the kids and their parents, and I hope that this is the last Christmas they will spend in here.
It's deeply moving for us. Great emotion and joy that we can give happiness to the children in this way. I would like to convey, on behalf of all firefighters, our love for all the little ones and our wishes for a speedy recovery. And we wish everyone happy holidays for the holy days that are coming.
So sweet. I'd say a few more kids have a dream to be a firefighter now.
That's right. I think I have a dream. You know, if this doesn't work out, I'll go see if they have space for me.
What a cool thing to do. Now, some of the firefighters landed on the balconies, as you see here, of the kids' hospital's rooms, while a few walked through the halls of the hospital, donned as Santa Claus, greeting patients and giving out ghost gifts.
Amazing. And according to the president of the Pediatric Oncology Hospital, the firefighters come every year and they give gifts to the kids, and it helps make their stay as festive as possible. Of course, they're enduring cancer treatment, which is very difficult for anybody to go through, let alone a child. So just a way to spread that cheer. And if you're another great idea, if you're looking to feel good and give back a little bit, make a big old pot of chili and drive it over to your local fire department with some bread.
Point.
They're the best. The firefighters, you know, they're just there to help and serve their communities.
Helping those who help others. All right. And speaking of which as well, there's so much goodness going around always, but especially at this time of year, and in a Hope in Cape Town in South Africa. It actually became a festive attraction after being decorated with thousands of Christmas lights and drawing visitors to its glowing garden and rooftop display. And that was the purpose of the person who put it up there.
That's right. The house lit with LED strips, illuminated figures, and a large Christmas tree. Signs reading Merry Christmas and Cape Town shine from the house, visible from nearby streets in the neighborhood.
And he just wanted to help folks out there who can't celebrate as much as they'd like to. Guests, if they do come by, can walk through the display, take photos, and listen to carols. The house also features nativity scenes and decorations, including a snowman and Father Christmas figurines.
And homeowner Rick Vandergallian says the tradition started small and it's grown incrementally year over year into a highlight of the season for his whole neighborhood.
The lights are switched on every night from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. until December 30. Entry's free, but donations of food, blankets, and pet supplies are collected for local charities.
And the house joins other festive installations across Cape Town, where street poles and public spaces are decorated for the holiday season. So if you happen to be popping through Southern Africa and you want to pop into this neighborhood in Cape Town, I'm sure it would be worthwhile. Or if you can't make it to Cape Town, it's good inspiration for maybe going a little bit bigger this year with your own lighting display.
Certainly so. And you know, it must be a lovely place to be. I do have some friends who popped over there one day and just decided to stay. They thought it was so nice. So maybe I'll tell them about this too.
There you go.
There you go. There's folks around in Cape Town stopping by.
But that's really what it's all about, you know. If you just go a little bigger, whether you're giving or you're creating, you know, some lighting for your neighbors to enjoy as they come by. There's nothing better than on a real cold night, you turn the corner and bam, you see a warm glow of lights. It really warms you up, doesn't
All
it?
the sparkling lights really lift the spirits.
Well, we do have to wrap up the show now, but if you have any feedback or maybe there's a story you'd like to see us cover, we want to hear from you. So send us an email at goodmorning@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you, and that's all we have time for. I'm Kerry Duds.
I'm Stephanie Cox. See you soon.